Turny jobby on the side.
Turny jobby on the side.
Are you happy with the... Oh, you know what we can do?
What's that?
You gotta light up your banners in the background a little bit. Does that light them up a little bit more? Yeah, there you go.
That does.
Sound good?
Yes.
Okay. As long as I got approval for you. And here we go.
And now for something special. The unit is self-contained with its own saddler, farrier, wheelwright and so on. It's a rigorous training dished out who know all there is to know about horses, and it brings results.
We take you behind the scenes now to show just some of the interesting aspects of this training.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein, the best podcast to create sounder horses from the ground up. Mike Stein is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF1 accreditation. On this week's show, the relationship between low palmar angle, the breakover point for hind feet, and the response of palpitations in the horse's gluteal muscle. Also, making photos and videos for your farrier and veterinarians for their evaluation, and also discussion of hind shoe modifications for dressage horses. All this and much, much more will be discussed here on Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. And over on my far right side is Mike Stein. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, Travis?
Well, I'm doing fine now. And the reason why I say that is because last week my wife went on a 4-day, 5-day girls retreat. Her and her best friend, her maid of honor, she hasn't seen her in about 3 years. She went down to Destin, Florida. Beautiful Destin, Florida. You know, sunshine and beaches and staying on the boardwalk there and having a great old time, just her and her best friend. Well, what happens when mom leaves home? Dad's at home by himself, me, with the horses and all the responsibility. Now, granted, my neighbor next door does clean out the stalls for us in the morning. She's, I think, 14, 15 years old. She's going through the 4-H club through her schooling and stuff. So this kind of helps her around animals and stuff. Well, we had a huge storm, bad storm here in Marshville. And so bad, Mike, I would stand on the back porch here. I could not see 4 feet in front of me. That's how bad the rain was. So, of course.
That's on this side of Marshville.
Right. This side, not your side of Marshville. I think you scheduled.
We got 2 drops.
It was so bad, Mike. Like I said, I couldn't see 4 feet in front of me. So what do I do? Remember we talked about last week when the rain starts.
You ran out in the rain.
Well, when the rain starts coming in, my wife likes to have the horses go inside. Mike, this was worse than any hurricane that I've been through, and I'm from Florida. And so I'm freaking out because I'm thinking that the horses are freaking out because I know if my wife was here, she'd be freaking out. So, I mean, it came on suddenly, like a couple drops, thunder and lightning, boom, open the sky, rain came down. So I ran out there, and of course, Diego in the front pasture is running up and down. What was the one horse that was running and pushing dirt into the corners and running?
Bucky
was pushing dirt in the corner. That's what he was doing. I'm like, great. This horse is going to snap his leg. Go ahead.
He was practicing being a reining horse.
Well, that's what he was doing. So I'm freaking out. So I get in the side-by-side, and I drive around to the other 3 horses. You know what the other 3 horses are doing?
Standing out in the middle of the rain.
Standing out there in the middle of the rain, looking at this gelding, this 4-year-old gelding that I got.
Why he's acting silly.
Exactly. Wondering why he's freaking out and just running all amok. So I grabbed a couple bales of hay or a couple flecks of hay, and I threw him in his lean-to, and finally he calmed down. Meanwhile, Daddy's soaked. I'm soaked to the bone. He calmed down. Everyone calmed down. And so I was like, because that's all I could think. You know, she just got this horse. The horse is going to slide. It's going to get wrapped up underneath, the worst case scenario, get wrapped up underneath the triple rail fence. He's going to be tangled up. I'm not going to know what to do. So it's been a stressful weekend, Mike. So I'm glad to see you here on Monday. So how are you?
I'm doing okay. And by the time you got to the house, you're wondering why you didn't take a bar of soap with you, right?
Jeez, me. So what have you been doing?
Well, I just went to, I think it's Neuse River.
We'll go with that.
Large animal. There was a vet farrier conference there over the weekend. I got to spend some time catching up with Dr. Richard Mansman, and met some other friends there that I hadn't seen in a while, and had some good discussion, had a good lunch, and here we are back at it.
So did you learn anything? Was it just you catching up with old friends, or was there an actual reason why you went out there?
Well, they had some good presentation. They always do. As far as that goes, that's part of the deal. Learning and sharing experience, and getting to see how some other people are handling some situations. And if nothing else, it causes you to rethink what you're doing, which we need to do that on a regular basis, because sometimes we think we know what we're doing.
Yeah, until someone tells you you're doing it wrong.
Well, every time you mess with a horse, every horse you do, something's a little different, so there's always something to learn.
It's not like
something to watch.
It's not a cookie cutter plan where every horse is the same all the way down the line.
That would be way too easy. Then we could mass produce this and wouldn't be a problem.
So what was your biggest takeaway from this meeting that you had?
Well, one of the deals we're going to talk about, Dr. Mansman was talking about using the glute muscles to gauge how the horse was working in the back end and how that related to your breakover and your palmar angle in the hind leg.
All right, well, let's take a small little break, and then we'll come back and we'll dive into that. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right, guys, stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He'll be right back. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He was the official farrier of the 2018 World Equestrian Games, and he's got a Facebook page, and make sure you jump on over to Facebook and follow him as well. Mike, you've been posting a lot of new articles up there, and I'm amazed to see all the different things that are out there for horses and all the information that's on your Facebook page. And the way you find him is go to Facebook and search for Equine Dynamics Mike Stein, and you can see all the articles. Make sure you like and share them as well. And don't forget, for every podcast we do, we have a matching video. You can see me waving to Mike, Mike waving to me. And throughout the show, you'll see Mike talk with his hands like he's doing the ASL or whatever, American Sign Language.
Well, if you tie my hands together, I wouldn't be able to talk.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about the relationship between the low palmar angle, the breakover point of the hind feet, and the responsive palpitations of the horse's gluteal muscles, meaning the buttocks. So where do we start from there?
Well, Dr. Mansman was talking about gauging how the hind end of the horse was working by using the gluteal muscle response. One thing you need to think about that he pointed out, if you're palpating the gluteal muscles, you need to reach across to the other side, because sometimes if you hit one wrong and they say, ow, that hurts, they could pop you. Now, your wife may want you to stand on the same side so you get popped. So always be careful of your position where you are around the horse. The Lewis, the experiment horse. Now, Lewis has led a lovely life, but Lewis gets to get used to prove a few things and just check a few things every now and then.
He's the horse.
Or was.
Yeah.
Yes, was. I think Lewis has gone on his way. But in setting up the back end of a horse, one thing they did do is using a plate that they could shift on the bottom of. They'd cut down some red and ultimates to where it was a flat plane and attached a plate on the bottom and set it at different places from one side to the other. One side of the breakover being further forward, one side further back. And just having the horse stand there, you could reach around from one side to the other and check the gluteal response. And it had changed it to the side where the breakover was further back, less gluteal response. On the side where it was further forward, he had more of a response and dropped out to having that gluteal muscle palpated. And so, I've always looked around the SI joint. Mm-hmm. That's always been kind of my key. And this is just something else in there. But these horses that are low palmar angle, have the breakover too far forward and or both, you get the flat developed rump where you have lack of gluteal muscle. And because we want the nice round pretty rump.
Yes.
We do.
Like my horse does.
Like your horse does. Because he's using his gluteal muscles. If they're not being used, they don't form. So just as a visual, that's always a quick thing to look at. Now, another visual you've got is looking at the angulation of the coronary band. And we've talked about some of the stuff before. On that hind leg, how high is it aimed? Is it aimed towards the knee or is it aimed towards the belly? And you can have feet that externally, looking at the hoof itself, if you're looking at the angle of the dorsal hoof wall, can look pretty good. And another thing that you run into, depending on if you overdress a hoof wall, you can take a rasp and you can thin that hoof wall way down at the bottom and make the exterior appearance of that angle to to appear at a higher angle than what is physically going on inside the hoof capsule itself. So that's one of those deals. I tend not to do that. That was a mistake I made early on because we wanted the foot to look a certain way.
Now, when you said early on, like early on in your career or early on this year? Like, is this recently?
Early on in my career.
Okay.
You know, everybody, we want the ankle to look like this. Well, if I take a rasp to the foot dorsal wall of the hoof, I can make the angle look at about what I want to. But on a couple things, if you thin that wall rate way down, structural stability of the foot, you're hurting that. If you've have damaged structural stability of the hoof, that cough bone can set down lower inside because it's just not where it's supposed to be. Then you got gluteal muscle response. You won't hide that from a low palmar angle. You can dress it down and make it look that way, but the gluteal muscle response will still be there. SI response will still be there. Development of the hind end will be there, and that's one reason we need to look at X-rays on horses on the hind end.
Now, go ahead.
I recently was sent some videos of a horse up in the Cincinnati area that they wanted me to take a look at. And this horse has been going back and forth to the vet clinic. And it doesn't matter, and the horse has front end problems. Horse not showing anything radiographically really, but navicular type responses. And they said, well, we've had 3 different packages on the horse. Nothing really helped very much. And to me, first time I saw the horse, I'm like, has anybody looked at the back end? And apparently has not been looked at too much. Nothing's been done mechanically back there. But I will tell you on horses like this that one way I always check the way those horses are doing was always my SI response, and now I'll work the gluteal response into it more. But you could do all kinds of stuff, change angles. We can change some pressure on tendons, but until the hind end is ready to pick the load off, the load's still on the front end.
So a few years back, I had a huge sciatic nerve that pinched in my buttocks that ran all the way down to my foot. And the reason why I tell you this is because I went to physical therapy, and they had like a 4-inch or 3-inch cushion block that I would stand on with one foot and try to sit there and try to balance. Now, my wife has these same 2 to 3-inch foam blocks that my horse stands on.
Right.
And of course, it's a pain in the butt to get the horse to stand still in any part. But something like that, does that help this situation as far as like the back and building that buttocks muscle?
That's something that seems to have been recycled. Everything we recycle, and it's the new thing.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, creating some appropriate receptor response, creating balance. I don't think that's going to hurt it. That has gotten to be a popular type thing. 20 some odd years ago, I'd seen some of the same stuff, but now it's new, and we want the new stuff.
It's new again.
It's new again. Yes, but what I saw 20 some odd years ago was using like thick foam blocks and taping the foot, let it compress the way the horse is bearing the weight.
Now, you wouldn't let the horse walk around like that. You just make them stand there in the cross ties and do that.
Just stand there.
Okay.
Just stand there. And I do have one question. Where did this my horse come from?
When I use the term,
just pay the bills.
When I use the term my horse, I'm talking about the household. My meaning the household. I should say my wife's horse. Maybe my wife.
That's a little more correct there, I do believe, buddy.
All right, guys, stick around. We got a lot more to get into. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He'll be right back. So you want to come back and talk about making photos, or you want to continue talking?
Let's get into the photo thing.
All right. Is there anything that you want to add to wrap up the other one before we go on? About the horse muscles or anything? I'll bring it up, and you can just go from there, and then I'll get the notice that you're done with it, and we'll go on to the next topic. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what you said.
Sure.
All right, we're going to this one. Here we go. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He was the 2017 American Eventing Championship Farrier. And don't forget, for every podcast we do, we have a matching video. You can see me waving at Mike waving at me. He hasn't done any hand signals yet. He's working on it, though. I saw his hands come up a couple times, and I'm like, no, Mike, put your hands down. You're going to bump the microphone or do something crazy.
I've been scolded enough.
And he beats on the table, hits the microphone. It's all chaos in here. And speaking of chaos, we'd love to hear your comments or any kind of questions. Email Mike Stein at equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says contact us. Fill out that little form there and then put podcast in the subject line and ask your question. If we answer it here on the air, we'll send you out some free stuff. Even if you just want to say hi to Mike, go over there as well and we'll send you out some. Make sure you put a return address and we'll send you out some magnets and stuff. Now, was there anything else you wanted to add? Mike, do you stand on foam cushions to make yourself center balance or anything like that where you sit at home and go, home?
I think about sitting at home going, is more about what I forgot and lost.
Right.
But, I don't know. I do wear good arch supports in my shoes. Does that count?
It does. Those Dr. Scholl's arch supports. Yeah. I've got my dad had, I had some done at the, I'm going to edit this out. So I had them specially made. Like they did examination of my feet and stuff, and they cut them out to make almost like a pad for a horse. So my feet were bad, and they had the arch put in my feet for the same thing. They had them specially made for me.
Cool.
You don't care. All right. Now we're going to get into making a photo and why is it important to make photos and videos correctly for your farrier or your veterinary evaluation.
So we can tell what's going on. I tell you, I do get sent photos or videos of horses from time to time.
Mm-hmm. You said you got the one from Cincinnati, right?
I got one from Cincinnati the other day. Got a little bit of information from a horse. When you're looking at a horse, sure, we want to look at the bottom of the foot. When I want to look at what's going on in the bulb of the heels and level and all that, I really just seen the horse was standing on the ground and under load, because the foot changes shape under load. And what I'm concerned about is what is that foot under load?
So basically having a rider up on top, correct? Or no?
No, just standing as opposed to the whole time the foot being hanging in the air.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
As soon as you pick up load, that foot changes shape.
Okay, that makes total sense.
And what I'm working with as far as the end of the day is where is that foot going to be under load, whether I'm working on there or not. So I get a lot of information looking at the foot standing before I lift, deciding where I'm going to go with what I'm going to do. The other thing is, and I was watching some videos that somebody had worked on a horse and was like, we're doing this and this, and we're just completely realigning the horse. Now, every time you trim a foot, it does do some realigning of the horse, because if you got a flare, it tends to pull the leg out into an odd position. But when you're looking at some of these videos and when they send them, if you got a horse that stands splayed out all over the place, shoulders, everything are all out all over the place, and understand this, because you can reposition those legs and take a totally different picture down that horse's back. If you got a horse that, okay, you're being lazy, you stand there, you got one hip cocked out, your toes probably is turned out, maybe just a little slack in that knee, right? And if somebody just looks solely at your hip, it's like, my God, he's twisted in the hips. But as soon as you square that up, it's going to be a different deal. So when you're looking at the muscle of the horse, a horse standing, feet in similar position, back in the similar, the back end of the similar position, if I watch what that toe's doing, I can pretty well tell you which hip's going to be dropped before I ever look at the hip. But to get a true picture where the horse is up top, you want the horses stood up as even as you can. Because, I've had people looking at horses and there's like, they're like, well, look, now he's uneven. And let's put the foot back let's put the foot back over the shoulder. Well, now he's even. So that's got to be taken into consideration. And
I've never known a horse just to stand still for any length of time. No. I mean, I go down and watch my wife when she's done riding. She, the cross ties, and the horse stands there while she brushes him or her off, and the horse will take a step back and take a step forward and take a step to the left. And I don't like the water on my legs, and move to the right and move to the left. I mean, what's the best way of just saying, stand still, horse?
That's one way to do it, for sure. But no, just some regular handling to get them to where the quarter horse people do well with getting a horse to stand up. But as far as me gauging what's really going on in muscle-wise, the more even they are standing, the more true of a reading you're going to get. If I want to do something to really put on a show, I might want the horse standing out all over the place and then stand him up later after I trim his feet and then reposition the legs. It's like, look how magically that fixed it right now, which it does have an effect. But there's also, whether it be the horse's body, whether it be the horse's hoof, or whatever, there's a lot of illusion. And that's one reason when people work with me learning to prep or trim feet, they're going to draw, they're going to measure, and we're going to carry that all the way up to the top of the hoof. We're going to draw flares, we're going to draw whatever, because your first instinct to go to a foot, sometimes, well, it looks long here, we take here, but if you find out you're chasing illusions more times than not, until you start laying out the foot. And when I'm doing hands-on clinics with people to trim, I really get detailed about that.
Would you rather have pictures of the horse, or would you rather have video? Or when's the best time to use a video, and when's the best time to send a picture?
Here's the deal. I do want to see some video. If they're trotting away, you need to get behind the horse. If they're trotting towards you, you need to get in front of the horse. Some of these horses are not tracking straight. If you get in front of their chest, you're not actually in front of the horse. So you need to get in front of the flight of path. From the sides, full-on horse. I've had too many times somebody sent me a video of a horse, and they're videoing the horse's feet while he's trotting out. And I'm like, well, what's the horse doing? But you've got his feet. I understand I've got his feet, but I need to know how he's working up top, and I'm getting most of my information from up there. Just talking about the glutes. Okay, your standing horse. If we're not developed correctly in the glutes, we're weak in the quadriceps, which are above the stifle. And they're telling me, he really flexes and drives off the back end. I'm going to sit here and say, yeah, sure he does, because he doesn't. And, the form follows function, function follows form. And, having a lot of massage background and bodywork background from working with like Ray Morris primarily and Clyde Caldwell and some of those guys that were really into the body of the horse, that's where the information comes from. And understanding what's locked, what's not locked. It was, you can learn to look at the shoulder of a horse and say, he's not using his back end because of what's happening he's bracing the shoulder, the muscles show it. And the same with the back end. You can tell pretty well if I've not got the development where he's not supposed to be, he's camped out beside himself. He's laying on his shoulders. Shoulders have to be braced. Physically, he'll fall down if they're not.
So when's the best time that just a picture would help you? And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, you were talking about having a load, the horse having a load on its foot. When you float that foot or you bring that foot up, that's where I would assume that you would want more pictures and video.
Yeah, pictures, videos of the standing horse. I really want both sides, and I'd like them to stand up, not splayed out all over the place. And hind end, front end, over the back. When you shoot the side shots of the foot, get down like they would with an X-ray unit and shoot each foot all the way around. From the front, kind of line up with the angulation of your dorsal hoof wall. And then from the back of the foot down the ball of the heels, I want them standing on it. And then then the horse foot has to be lifted, of course, to shoot the bottom of the foot.
Right.
But as far as what the bulbs or heels are doing when it's up here and when it's under load, that's a completely different animal. And I need to know where I'm going to end up under load.
And we can email you those pictures at any time over at equinedynamics.com, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, guys, stick around. We got one more little segment, actually two more little segments to get into, and then we'll let you get back to what you got to do by enjoying the rest of your day. Stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He'll be right back. Discussion of the hind shoe modifications for a dressage horse.
Yes.
All right. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He is now a licensed thoroughbred farrier through the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission. And if you have questions for Mike Stein, if you have videos for Mike Stein, please send them over. Go over to equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says contacts. Fill out that little form there. Make sure you put podcasts on there. We'll play your video here on the show. For every podcast we do, we have a matching video. You can see us here in the studio, me waving to Mike, Mike waving to me. We can also play your video on the podcast as well. We can have it. You can see right here on our monitors what we're looking at, and Mike will decipher your horse's video right here in the studio. So make sure you get that over to him as well. Make sure you put a return address, and we'll send you out some magnets and stickers and stuff for your car, for your kids and whatnot. for being a part of the show. Now, Mike, discussion of the Hind shoe modification for dressage horse. Now, this is my field because my wife rides dressage. She just bought a 3-year-old gelding who's now a 4-year-old. We have an 11-year-old mare out there, and then we have 2 little pasture buddies out there. Pepper and Cayenne are my 2 little mother-daughter team that just kind of keeps everyone happy. So let's describe the Hind shoe modifications for dressage horse.
Well, when I'm working on dressage horses, a couple of things have to be looked at. Breakover is always part of it. What I do to the shoe most of the time, and it's going to vary horse to horse. I'm going to look at big support on the outer branch, forging it out. If you want to go real big, sometimes we need to weld pieces in, or we start with enough shoe that we can forge it out and get what we want on that outer branch, maybe a little bit of an extension. On the inner branch is going to be cut shorter and narrowed up, especially on the synthetic surfaces.
Only because of the style of riding that dressage is, correct?
Part of it's the style of riding. Part of it is the conditions. Part of it is every horse is a little different. Now, your horse is very uphill.
The mare. No, the gelding.
The gelding is very uphill. He's still maturing, so we're going to watch what changes with that, because that's changed during the time you've had him.
Mm-hmm.
As the mare, she's a little bit different horse. She's got her. All of them have their issues. There is no perfect. In their heads, we see perfect.
Right, we want to see
there. And they, how you shoe the back end of the horse is going to vary from horse to horse. But pretty typically, I want a lot of support on the outside branch, broader branch on the outside. The way I finish the branch with a hammer, I will make it physically wider. The part where the foot loads on it, the thickness will stay there. I don't want to lower the whole thing down. We're not thinning down the whole branch, just bringing down, on the outside where I might do a little grinder work on the inside. I'll do hammer work on the outside to safe it off. And as I push that down, that broadens it out. And also on the inside, I want to get some sole relief, and I can pull down sole relief real hard and broaden it out to the inside.
Now, the gelding does not have shoes on it still to this day.
Right, and doesn't need it yet because we're not at that point. We don't need to push that point until it's necessary.
Now, do you see that happening soon? Do you see something like, all right, I see this coming around in 6 months' time or a year's time, we're going to have to put something, whether it be a pad or something on this horse soon? Or if we continue doing the path as far as the care and the take that you're given the horse, we should be able to prevent anything later on.
Well, the deal is to prevent damage later on.
Correct.
And right now, he's young, we're growing, we're conditioning. The better the horse is conditioned, the more evenly the horse is conditioned, the less likely I'm going to have to do something mechanically to help the horse out.
Now, when you say condition, in my ears, I hear exercise.
Exercise.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because my wife was out of town, and Brett, who we had on the show last season,
right?
He's our trainer. He actually came over and rode the horses while my wife was away for 2 days.
Well, good for him.
Yeah, he came on over, had some coffee.
Yep. Had some coffee, got a little exercise in. He needs to do a little saddle time and see what they feel like under him anyway.
Correct.
Even if he's not regularly riding them, he needs to step on those horses.
He does. Sometimes he comes over and they'll split. They'll do 50-50. So it's an hour lesson, and he'll ride the first 30 minutes and then get off the horse and let my wife ride and say, hey, I felt this. Tell me how you're feeling that as well.
Right.
On both horse, the mare and the...
And that's perfect. But, on these new arena surfaces we're dealing with, on that inside branch, a lot of times I will narrow that down. The horse carries the bulk of the weight to the inside leg, right? To the inside of the hoof.
Yes.
The hoof there, the medial side, the body's straight over it. So you got weight there. And on these sand surfaces, the ground gives. On these synthetic surfaces, the shoe sits on top. So when narrowing that up, we end up, a lot of times, medial side heel, you get jamming where it wants to jam it upwards. So if you narrow the shoe, it gives it a chance to go into the surface some to relieve some of that. As it pushes into the surface, you're relieving some of that impact. On the outside, it's a little bit different deal. And also on breakover, you know, horses need to break slightly out of their body on the hind end, because that stifle, you're not trying to aim the stifle straight into the rib cage, especially on a big barreled horse. And so you're going to have to play that, watch your wear patterns, and see which way they want to go with their breakover. And you're going to have to adjust the breakover around that. Also on a dressage horse, a lot of times I will forge out the toe really wide, like you would for the suspensory shoes for working a horse that has suspensory damage, because we want to get around having suspensory damage. So I want that nice wide toe plate, and I want a shoe with enough material in it that after I'm done, I can forge that, have a good breakover, have a nice broad toe plate, big lateral support, power tools, whatever, narrow up the inside, and get him to where he can come into that ground, not create too much concussion, minimize concussion, because we have some give there. When they do all these lateral maneuvers, part of the outside branch, when they bring that foot under the center line of the body and they're starting to lift, think about the downforce they create on that outside wall. So I've got to hold him out of the ground. If he's collapsing on that outside, think about what you're doing to your collateral ligaments. And your collateral ligament strain could put him out of work for some time. So if I go ahead and prepare to hold that collateral ligament up, we can miss some collateral ligament damage. If I prepare the shoe to help protect the suspensories, a lot of times in our dressage horses, what's one of the biggest things? Oh God, we've got some suspensory flare-ups. So I want to build what I do with that in mind to help protect from injuries at a later point.
Now, is there any other style of riding that you would compare to dressage that you would still do the same way? I don't know if that question made sense. Is the style that you work on dressage horse feet, is there any other style of riding that you kind of do the similar, take that same aspect and roll it over into, I don't know, 100 jumpers or eventing or anything like that?
Well, the modern arena surfaces have changed every discipline. With my event horses, they are all doing dressage at some level, but they're also doing cross country. So you got to do some modifications, but we've got to look at the job of the horse. And what I can do for a horse that's purely doing dressage won't necessarily work on cross country without slinging shoes, with all the metal, everything's out there on the cross country course. If you got a long course at 3.5, 4 miles or 2.5 miles, that's a long way to look for a shoe.
Yeah.
And, during the middle of the cross country, if I'm blowing stuff off all over the place, and it causes us not to place where we should have in cross country, that's a problem. So I got to keep that in mind. On your show jumpers, that has drastically changed over the Jack Miller days years ago because of arena surfaces. And now those arena surfaces, when they water them, a lot of those get grippier. Back when I was working with Miller, they were working more on sand surfaces. And then there was the thing of, on the big jumpers, doing a 3-stud setup on the back end. And sometimes, occasionally, we did one where we had 4 in the back end. But the deal was to hopefully use smaller studs where when they planted a foot, they could pivot on it. Where if you put something like you're driving railroad spikes in the ground, they're stuck. And, on jumpers these days, most of them are not wearing studs. If you got horses that are working on grass arenas, they might wear studs, but you don't even see that much of that now. So it's going to vary some horse to horse, discipline to discipline. And, your wife's horse is different in the back end from your gelding.
I noticed you said my wife's horse that time instead of your horse.
Well, you say I said your gelding, but those horses are going to be treated a little different.
Right.
There are always variations, and that's why you got to start looking at the horse and paying attention to what's going on. And I will tell you over and over and over that 90% of my information comes from up top in the body.
All right, guys, stick around. We got one more short little segment to get into, and we'll let you get back to enjoying the rest of your day. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He'll be right back. No, I brought up is there anything similar for the horses that you're doing for dressage, just in case there was someone out there who wasn't doing dressage,
right,
to see if what you were saying would translate over to whatever style that they were riding. That's kind of where I was going with that.
Right. To a degree. Mm-hmm. Some of those horses you just kind of want to look at like this.
You ready?
Yes.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein, the best podcast to create sounder horses from the ground up. Mike Stein is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF 1 accreditation. Now, you were talking about having the arena wet or the surface being wet and being tacky and sticky. Well, let me tell you, after that big, huge storm we had here on the property, my arena back there, which is a mini-size dressage arena, I think it's 120 meters by 81 meters or something like that. It's not the huge size. It's the one step down. The way we have it set up, we have crush run out there, or what they call screenings for our surface. Yes. And then we've got, I think they call it pit gravel or something underneath it, which helps it drain.
Right.
Well, it was a pond out there. I couldn't go fishing out there. It was that's how bad and how quickly that rain came in, and it couldn't dissipate fast enough in the arena. So my wife was out there this morning riding in it, and she's like, yeah, you fluffed up the arena the other day with the Haro drag and getting everything nice and flowery out there. Mm-hmm. And of course, the rain comes in and beats it all down and completely eliminated what I did out there.
Well, you're going to get to do it again.
Yes, I will. Probably in the next hour or so. All right, guys, what did we learn today? The relationship between the low pommel angle, the breakover point on the hind feet, and the response palpitations of the horse gluteal buttocks muscles.
Yes. And if you do palpate those buttocks, gluteus muscles,
right,
reach across the horse to the far side leg from where you are to palpate him. That way, if he snaps off a kick, you're clear. So be safe no matter what you do with your horse.
Yes. And, you know, I've always been told, and it's weird that even as a child, you've been told never to stand behind a horse. Never stand behind a horse. Even today, even the little ponies that I have out there, I never stand behind them. I might, you know, I'm a full-grown adult, and these things are, you know, small little horses, you know, 500-600 pounds, but I don't want them kicking me anywhere. They're right at that level where they would get me in the... All right. Making the best way to make videos and pictures to send to your farrier or your veterinary for evaluations. You want the whole horse. You don't want just not just the feet.
If I want to see a video of a horse, I want to see the horse. If you're going to do a video of just feet, get the camera down where the feet are. You know, that way you can see under them. Most of the time, I do not get that. I've had too many videos where they're trotting out a horse and they're in an some strange angle to the horse, or we're trying to film just his feet. Honestly, when I'm watching a horse,
you're not watching the feet at all. You're watching the movement of the head, the shoulders, and the butt.
I'm watching the leg swing the whole bit. But one thing that is overlooked, and I think people don't think about, when a horse is trotting away from me, I am watching his front legs. When he's trotting towards me, I am watching his hind legs.
And the reason behind those?
Well, there's a relationship between front and hind and how they're traveling, and I need to see all four legs and what's going on. And also, if there's something odd, an odd swing on the hind end, is he countering that swing on the front end as a balance maneuver? And vice versa.
And the hind shoe modifications for dressage horses?
It's going to vary horse to horse. The arenas are going to change to a point. Disciplines are going to be different. Definitely with a reining horse, it's going to be different from a barrel horse versus a dressage horse. So there are going to be things that are specific to discipline.
All right, guys, on that note, we'll let you get back to enjoying the rest of your day. On behalf of Mike Stein over there, make sure you follow him on Facebook and YouTube, and the way you do that is search for Equine Dynamics Mike Stein, and you can see this podcast in real time as we're talking about it here on the show. Make sure you follow him on Facebook and see all the great articles he's got over there. I'd like to thank Mike Stein for coming out and hanging out with us this week. My name is Travis Holmes, saying see you next week.
Have a good one.
Little cowboy, close your eyes.
I totally jibbed up my ending. I don't know why I said that, but I'll edit that out and make it sound smoother.
Yeah. We had a few things we stumbled through.
Yeah, we have done this.
dream.